Hei, og hjertelig velkommen til en ny faglunsj om byer og bærekraftig mobilitet. Dagens tema er omdisponering av gateareal for å gi mer plass til gående og syklende. Vi har i dag med oss Robyn van der Griend. Han og familien flyttet i høst hjem til Nederland etter 7 år i Sverige. Der jobbet han for Rambøll i Malmö og var bosatt i Helsingborg. Nå jobber han for konsulentselskapet Mobycon, som rådgiver innen bærekraftig mobilitet. Velkommen til Bylunsj, Robyn.
Takk.
Du er med oss fra Delft i sør i Nederland. Hvordan er det i Delft i dag?
Det är jättebra här i Delft idag, tack.
Begynner det å bli jul snart?
Nej, inte än. Vi har Sinterklaas här i Nederländerna. Och vi kommer att ha en liten kalas på kontoret med presenter och godis. Så det blir jättekul.
Det høres ut som et nederlandsk julebord.
Ja, det stämmer.
Ja. Du snakker svensk, men i din presentasjon så skal du snakke engelsk. Så vær så god da, Robyn.
Tack. So I recently had a son, and he's still pretty small, but I hope in a few years that we can cycle to school together. And as he gets a bit older, that he can cycle on his own to the local library or to his friends. But the street in front of our house looks like this. So it's not the worst, but it's also pretty wide. And there's a speed limit of 40 kilometers an hour. There are more than 4,000 cars a day. So I ask myself, would I let my son cycle here? And the answer is probably no. And the other streets in our neighborhood aren't much better. This is another local street, but look at the size of this intersection. This is not very cycle friendly. So today I would like to talk with you about how to transform these local streets and how to make them cycle friendly. And I will be using my former neighborhood in Helsingborg in Sweden as an example. Now, this is a very typical urban neighborhood. There are some couple of big roads that surround it, but there are also streets that run right through it. And people drive through the neighborhood simply because it's convenient. And I work as an international planner for cycling. And usually the first thing that is then mentioned for streets like this is we need a cycle path. And well, this is an example from Malmö. And you can argue if this is the right approach, as the intersection still isn't very cycle friendly. But I mean, if you would build cycle infrastructure like this within a neighborhood, and you want to make sure that people can make those door-to-door journeys, then you probably need cycle infrastructure here, you need it here, you need it here, and maybe on many more streets. And that actually raises the question, do you then need to build cycle paths everywhere? Well, it doesn't have to be like that. I grew up in the Netherlands, and when I was young, I could cycle independently. I could go to school on my own, I could meet my friends on my own, and that was for a large part thanks to the design of local streets in the Netherlands. So this is what they look like, and the way they are designed is that they have a speed limit of 30 kilometers an hour within a zone. They often have car parking in pockets, which makes the street narrow. They have compact intersections, which are usually on a raised table so that the speed of car traffic is low. And that really makes them very friendly for cycling and very inviting. Now, internationally, a lot of focus for the Netherlands often goes out to the dedicated cycle infrastructure. And that's great. But these local streets are really like the unsung heroes of the Dutch cycle networks. They are what ties everything together, and they are what makes those door-to-door journeys by bike possible. And as I said, that is partly because of the design, but it's also because of filtered permeability. So within the neighborhoods, it is possible to make the most direct journey on foot or by bike, but car traffic is actively filtered out. And that is to ensure that these streets stay relatively calm and with low amounts of car traffic so that it actually is pleasant to cycle there. So back to my neighborhood. And we could do this in a similar way. We could look at this neighborhood as a zone and then use strategic interventions to filter out the car traffic. And then all of a sudden, all of those streets within the zone become a lot more cycle-friendly. We could then make that even better by addressing some of the intersections. For example, by reducing the size of these intersections by building a couple of build-outs. We could add more greenery, maybe a raised table to lower the speeds of the cars that pass by. And how about some street trees? And then I can ask myself that question again. Would I cycle here with my son? Well, yes, I would. So thank you.
Tusen takk til deg, Robyn van der Griend, så langt. Robyn jobber altså i konsulentselskapet Mobycon, som er et nederlandsk konsulentselskap som har oppdrag over hele verden når det gjelder mobilitetsløsninger. Dere som ser på direkte kan nå stille spørsmål til Robyn. Det kan dere gjøre på slido.com. Koden er Bylunsj. Robyn svarer skriftlig på alle spørsmål i etterkant av sendingen. Robyn, I think your presentation is pretty much perfect timing, because in Norway we expect the coming years less funding for new infrastructure. But so we need new ideas and new principles maybe for transforming existing streets to make them more walkable and more cycling friendly. What do you think, Robyn?
Yeah, I think this approach could definitely help with that. In this way, it's possible to, in a very quick way, make streets more cycle friendly. And you could do that within a neighborhood approach, so it can have a lot of impact on many streets. And that means that the limited funds that you have, you can invest in a more efficient way. There might be places where you still need dedicated cycle infrastructure, so then you can focus funds for that, and then also use this approach for other areas where it would be possible to transform those local streets.
And this approach is also much quicker, both in planning and building, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. So it would be possible to implement something like this relatively quickly. For example, by using those strategic interventions, by just placing a couple of bollards, you would be able to have the impact. And then over time, it would be possible to improve things by just making things better on the intersections.
When you are presenting these ideas in Helsingborg, how do they react?
Well, the thing is, I haven't actually talked to the municipality. After I made this presentation, my family and I moved to the Netherlands. So we never actually came to the fact that we talked about it with the municipality, unfortunately.
Okay, so I think I should send Helsingborg this link to this Bylunsj while you're answering the questions right after the broadcast.
Hopefully it can inspire a few people that are still living there about what kind of street they would like to have.
Norwegian streets are often considered to be quite narrow, but if you reallocate parking space and give this extra space for walking and cycling, you can do a lot of things, can't you?
Yeah, that's right. I think whenever we have projects all over the world, I mean, this is a relevant topic everywhere. And whenever we take space away from cars, there's always a lot of conflict between the people that drive the cars and own the cars, that they want to maintain that space. So it's always a very difficult discussion. But what I think would help is if we can give a voice to all of the other things that are going on in city streets. For example, the the children that would like to walk to school on their own or bike to school on their own. So by bringing in those different perspectives, we get a more balanced discussion about what the streets in our cities would look like. And I think that would help with the argument to actually transform them.
Robyn, I know that you like to work internationally. Why is that?
For me, I think it gives me a lot of value, a lot of extra value. I can work on a project in Norway, for example, and then learn from what's happening there and take those ideas with me to a next project that I have in Sweden, or take those things that I learn in Sweden and bring them to Germany. So by looking across those borders, I can take the best practices from all of those places and come up with tailor-made solutions for a specific location. I think sometimes it's really valuable to look across the borders and look at how other people are solving similar challenges that we have.
Tusen takk til Robyn van der Griend fra Mobycon. Tusen takk også til Anna Kastratovic Johansen, god kollega. Og ikke minst tusen takk til dere som har sett på. Ha en fin dag videre.